today we're going to dive into another exciting journey of an entrepreneur who has done a lot, succeeded, helped a lot of business succeed as well. So we're going to dive into his journey and we're going to learn a little bit more about how we can create better content that actually sells and resonates with our audience better. Today we have Ryan Kucher on the show today. He's the founder and chief creative officer of Circus Maximus. Ryan, welcome to Elevate Media Podcast today.
Dude, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to diving into this. I know you've done quite a bit in your career and in your journey building Circus Maximus and yeah, and just helping people create better content, and improve their brands. But first, before we do that, trying to line things up, learn a little bit more about people and ask questions that hopefully have never been asked. If this one's been
All right.
asked, fantastic. But the question I want to start with is out there, but which fictional character would you want by your side during a zombie apocalypse?
Which that's a good one. That's funny. Look, I see you have Thor here on your
Yeah.
shirt. That's a pretty good choice. So you got all the Avengers there. And
Uh,
and for a little while at a previous agency, my nickname was Thor. So my email was Thor at warnervigusky.com. So if you're gonna have someone by your side, the God of Thunder is a good choice.
I like that. That's good.
We'll roll with that just because it's on brand for your shirt and my history there. So
There you
let's go.
go. I like it. I like that. And the scene that pops in my head is in when they're in Wakanda and he comes out of the sky and the music starts playing and he just comes down and just lightning and just lays out everybody that's attacking
Yeah,
Wakanda. I think I could see you and him teamed up there on the field and all these zombies and he just zaps them all. So that's a good choice for sure.
absolutely. Endgame was spectacular.
Yeah.
So we got there's a good record of Thor's ability in that kind of a situation. So let's roll
Yeah.
with Thor.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's a great choice. I don't know if I could really outdo it. I'd pick Captain America because he's my favorite. So I think I'd go into battle with him. Be a little bit more tough, I think, but
What
yeah.
are have you asked that question before to other people? What was
I
the best?
haven't asked that one. No, I haven't asked that one yet. I'm trying to
You
think if there's
primed me
be
with
anybody
your
else.
shirt. I want to come up with something like more original than that, but since you primed me with your shirt, all right, we'll go
I
with
wasn't even thinking about that. That's funny, but yeah, I don't. My mind originally went to Rick Grimes because he's already done it, but I'm like, oh crap, yeah, there's a lot of fictional characters that would be probably a lot more powerful and beneficial to have.
yeah, or like so zombies bite you, right?
Yeah,
So I don't know.
they're fairly slow, so there's just
Yeah,
a lot of them, which
it depends on which zombies you're talking about, like the Shaun of
that's
the
true.
Dead zombies or like you just referenced it. What's the show?
Walking Dead, they're pretty slow there, yeah.
Walking Dead, the ones that are like actually like mushroom zombies. What's the show?
Yeah, The Last of Us, yeah,
Last,
where they got the huge thing that comes and just rips people in half.
yeah. So maybe you'd want someone that like a gardener. I don't know.
Yeah, someone who knows plants can
Someone that
yeah,
knows
kill that's funny. Yeah, I don't know,
but
it's just a random question I
Thor.
found, and yeah, I like Thor. I do
Thor,
like
yeah.
I think you'd be pretty well off with him.
They're
Cool,
right
Ryan.
there.
I appreciate that, that's good. I guess to dive into it, man, how long have you had Circus Maximus?
Yeah, this is actually 10 years. The 10-year anniversary is 2023. So we started it in April of 2013. We didn't really get operating for a little while. That's when we incorporated. And then, yeah, I mean, it's rolled and evolved and taken different forms over the years. But I think in its form as it is now, we've really been operating at about 4 or 5 years.
Cool.
But
Now yeah, that journey, like, I love that because you just mentioned, like, 10 years, but morphed and changed and flowed
yeah,
differently until the last 4 or 5 years where it solidified almost the direction you're going. I like that because I think when you start out and people listening to this who are started out, they're thinking, "Yeah, 10 years from now, this is exactly what I'm gonna be doing, like, this
yeah.
same thing," but it ebbs and flows so much, and what is that like? What was this 10 years, like, in a nutshell? I know there's a lot that's gone through it, and we can dive into some more of it, but just
Yeah,
looking back 10 years ago to when you started to where you are
yeah.
now, like, drastic changes, was it just kinda small
Well,
changes throughout the process?
I think the kernel of what we've always wanted to be has been the same. So right now, what the way that we describe what we do is we help brands get their story straight and tell them interestingly.
Yeah.
So that's like a brand narrative, brand strategy, brand identity, and content creation. But getting to that took a little while to really boil it down. And the other thing is, like a lot of industries, the advertising industry has changed really dramatically. And what can happen and what has happened in our business is you end up chasing like a trend. So let's say it was direct to consumer marketing or funnel optimization or these things that become very important for a short amount of time. Those things are still important, but they become like really, those subjects become really popular and highly discussed. And then so everyone feels like, what's our TikTok strategy? And then
Right.
everyone's doing TikTok or whatever. Navigating through that is where if you think you have an idea and then you maybe get a little bit lost or distracted and then you come back to it and then you figure out how to like really articulate. Getting to our narrative has probably been the thing that has changed the most, even though at its core, we've all ultimately always done those things. So it's going to be different for every different kind of an entrepreneur, depending on what category you're in and what you're offering. But, getting to a true understanding of what we do, who we do it for, how we do it, why we do it, that stuff has been the journey.
Yeah, with that too, that doesn't just happen overnight. So how can someone starting out or even where we are with Elevate or where you are now, how can we continue to hone our brand's identity, the messaging to be able to put out the right content? Where can we even start with that?
Those 5 questions, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? What makes us different? How are we doing it? And who are we doing it for? Are really the guidelines, right? It's like almost the journalistic approach, the 5 Ws of what your brand is. And I think the people that have the clearer and more succinct answers to those, I feel like are the ones that they're the ones that the rest of us look at and go like, how are they doing that? They're the ones that seem to, because they've identified and outlined exactly what they're here to do. And I think that creates a very clear benefit for their consumers, whoever those consumers may be. So really work hard to answer those questions. And I think that's, if I look at, where I maybe wasted the most amount of time was resisting answering those questions
Mm.
in a compelling way.
Why do you think you resisted answering those for?
I think I felt like as a person, like in my career prior to starting my business, worked on all different kinds of brands in the framework of advertising and branding. And I just thought I could work on anything. And I have a brain that is curious, and therefore, whether it would be same as like Burger King or Volkswagen. All right, so we've just gone from QSR restaurants to automotive. And I think I worked at agencies that had broad spectrums of client bases. And I think that particularly when you're starting a smaller business, they call it like niching down or
Mhm.
having a specific audience. I think those things give you an advantage because they give you a very clear audience to whom you're speaking. As you win more and more of those pieces of business, you develop specific industry knowledge that's beneficial to that audience, which then ups your credibility and your trustworthiness and inspires different pieces of advice, content, white papers that you might give that would be particularly relevant to your audience, which would then drive more of that audience to you. And it becomes this kind of self-fulfilling cycle that I think works really well. My resistance to doing that meant on any given day, I'm having a different conversation with a different kind of client, trying to convince them that I can work on their business. And it just took a lot. It's like boiling the ocean.
Yeah.
It took a lot longer.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing starting out because you hear both. Stay broad because you want to help everyone, or you want to have a wider net, or but then obviously the niching down. I think because creating content that sells, which is what you help brands do as part of what you do for their brand valuation and process. It content creation already can be overwhelming and can be time consuming. It can be difficult, but I think if you have that idea of who you're speaking to and a more direct, more targeted approach, a more idea that's targeted on who you're talking to, I think that helps that creation content or content creation process.
Think about it like you hurt yourself, right? Let's say you hurt your shoulder. The first person that you want to see, you've dislocated your shoulder. Do you want to go see the shoulder specialist that worked on every NFL quarterback that ever lived? Or do you want to go to your general practitioner that also is a pediatrician and You want to
Yeah.
go to a specialist. I think thinking through content creation and your narrative and being a sort of a specialist is another way of kind of thinking about how to get your narrative straight, right? You want to be able to offer really specific, actionable, trustworthy advice to a particular kind of a client. And that's a client that has a shoulder injury or whatever you're going
Yeah,
to be.
right. So when you've figured out that target, that group of individuals that you wanna help and how you're gonna help them, what's a good way to go about creating content that actually connects with them and increases your sales or increases your chances of getting sales? Is there, like, a process to create ideal content, or is it just
You know what's
hoping you understand it?
so if you're asking me, it's because it's one of the things that my agency is like, we try to work the hardest on, but we seem to spend the least amount of time on is like the agency content that we create. But when we help our clients, for some reason, it's easier. It's like the cobbler's children run barefoot. You're really thinking through, all right, if you are providing a good or a service, effectively, you're trying to help someone move from one state of being to another. You're helping them transform and you're trying to get a really strong sense of what are all of the things that, are going to make life awesome once they've transitioned to that new state of being.
Yep.
And then you think backwards about like, all right, what are the things that are preventing them
Mm,
from doing those things? And then you're creating the content that helps them get through each of those challenges. So you're ultimately removing the blockages. And the content could be in the form of like how to's. If you think of what you're offering as
mhm.
effectively like help, you're empathetically trying to help someone achieve a desired state of being. Then you can work backwards and think about what are all the blockers? They could be physical, they could be psychological, they could be emotional, they could be financial, all of these things. And then your brand is there dedicated to try to help them get over those hurdles or past them. That's where the content creation sort of lives.
Okay. So, for that, do you think physically writing down these different
Yeah.
areas and then branching off so you have ideas, say, okay, today I could talk about why you would want to grow your coaching business, your consulting business, and then talk to that aspect in some form or fashion?
Yeah, exactly. So you'd start with who am I talking to? I'm
Mhm.
talking with people that want to start a personal coaching business. And then like, where are they at now? I don't know, they have this idea. And then what is their ultimate desired state of being? Is I imagine a world in which I'm coaching 10 people a month and I'm really helping them through. And then you'd have to niche down and think about specifically what are you coaching them on? It's what is preventing you from being able to do that now? I don't believe I'm qualified. All right, but here's how you can overcome imposter syndrome to become a fantastic coach piece of content.
Yeah.
Or I don't have enough people in my network. All right, here's how you can network to create a pipeline of potential coachable clients. So you're just thinking backwards from if I really want to do this thing, be this kind of a person, live in this kind of a world where all of my dreams are coming true, then think backwards on what are the blockages? What are the things that are preventing you from being there? The content marketing really is about helping them overcome each of those little challenges. And then from that lens, it almost starts to become, I don't want to say easy, but the path becomes clear of what should the content that you're creating really start to look like.
Yeah. A little bit simpler. And I think, yeah, like you mentioned, that's why focusing in on a certain group of people will make it simpler in that process. Now,
You got to really understand A, what they want, B,
mhm,
how you help them get that, and C, like what are the challenges that they're going to overcome to get there so that you can help them through all those little gateways. Brands that create You hear Gary Vee talk about this, a lot of content creators talking about value.
mhm,
Value is literally solving those problems or helping solve mental blockages or whatever those things may be. That's how you create the value added content is like understanding your consumer, understanding what they want and understanding what's preventing them from getting that and then helping them solve those problems. That's value, right?
yeah. And I think, yeah, creating the value almost forces you to put yourself in their shoes and look at it from their perspective. Because sometimes, uh, as we're going along, growing our own businesses or building our own businesses or focusing there, especially if we're still creating the content, if we're early on, or even the team, we could see it almost through kind of jaded lenses. We're here and we forget what we've come through to get to that point. And so we to be able to look from the perspective of the ones we're trying to help reminds us of those things that we went through or that we struggled with or that we had to overcome. And I think that shifts it from us to them and helps simplify again that process.
Yeah, I think sympathy and empathy are both really
Mm,
powerful emotional tools that you've got to lean in on. You can't. It's one of the hardest things to do, and one of the biggest challenges. Like in my world, often the agency plays the role of the consumer in the room because when I'm working with large clients, you have a boardroom filled with really smart and talented marketers, many of whom might not actually reflect the consumer at all. And our job is to help be the voice of the consumer in the room. And sometimes that means giving voice to those things that the consumer is really feeling, thinking, dealing with to help provide some of that empathy in a perfect world, right? Where that's going to lead to the best marketing, whether that's content marketing, like we've been talking about,
mm,
or anywhere in the marketing mix, whether that's a TV commercial, online video, TikTok content, content marketing, email follow up, any of those things you really want to effectively be pretty closely connected with that consumer journey, the emotional journey there.
yeah. And now, from your perspective, are you one who thinks you need to make big waves? You think that benefits your content creation? If it's something that is really debatable, almost not clickbait, but like something
Mm.
that is going to get more views, or should you stay to that wheelhouse, or should you try to, again, make waves in some form or fashion?
Yeah, that's a good question. And like, I've been on both sides because I worked for an agency where like the goal of the agency was to create famous work or sometimes infamous. I did a stunt for Burger King years ago and it was called Whopper Freakout. And the entire intention of the campaign was to provoke people. So we took the Whopper off the menu at this restaurant and we basically pranked people and they freaked out. We called it Whopper Freak Out. It was like, it ended up being a very successful campaign. It was referenced in the Wall Street Journal, but it was still tactical around this idea of proving how much people love the Whopper. But there's also stunts that brands do that feel like they're really disconnected from any kind of a strategy or trying to prove any kind of a point or trying to help a consumer. And so those in the world of the internet and social media, like I think people do throw those grenades. And I think the value as the news cycle has gotten shorter and shorter, even 10, 15 years ago, you could do something like that. We did that Whopper Freakout campaign.
Uh-huh.
People talked about it. It was on late night TV shows. People talked about the campaign for like weeks.
Uh-huh.
Now you're so inundated with
Mhm.
content.
Yep.
I don't remember what we spent on that, but we spent a lot of money on it. And you could argue that the earned media that we got from that really was a great value because we spent $1 million, we got $100 million of media impressions. Nowadays, to pull off a stunt like that, you might, if you even catch people's attention, later that afternoon, there's going to be a Chinese balloon. Logan Paul's going to do something.
Yeah.
And so the idea of creating earned media, I think the value of that as a strategy is a lot harder now. It's a lot harder because things like YouTube,
Yeah.
TikTok, Instagram, you name it, any social platform. And this didn't even exist 15 years ago. So
Right.
now you're competing with so much stuff. So I think if you were asking like, should you just try to get people's attention? I think the value of trying to do like stunts to get people's attention is tougher. I think
Yeah.
they still fall for clickbait. We
Right.
all
Yeah.
click just because clickbait is like the formula that works. It's like how to lose 10 pounds by this afternoon. Yeah, I like where it psychologically they do work, but I think that the tail of that is ultimately it's not really trying to help you. It's trying to get some money from you at some point.
Yeah.
If your brand is on a long-term mission to truly help people, the content that you're going to create is going to add value over time. And hopefully you won't need to pull those kind of stunts.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point to remember, like, especially for those listening. you gotta play the long game. You hear Gary Vee, you hear Alex Hormozi talking about it. Play the long game because you could try to take these shortcuts and do clickbait and do these ridiculous stunts just to get views or get follows.
Yeah.
But I give the example that I had a reel that I put on Facebook in January or something that went viral. It
Mm.
was a random thing and it got like 8 million views and it like increased but like to me, like it didn't really matter because it didn't necessarily bring in the people that I wanted to bring in. It just happened. It wasn't the intent. It just happened to blow up. And so you got to think about it that way. Do you want to just build a really big, like wide reach that doesn't really convert much, or you want to just work on going deep with a certain group and just building that content out for that?
That goes back to the question of why you're doing something. Why are you offering your service? And that why is what's going to sustain you. And you're also talking about the relationship between performance marketing and brand marketing.
Yeah.
In my world, brand marketing was all that existed for the longest time. And then performance marketing kind of popped up and people realized like, oh, this is just all about getting revenue like today. And now I think the pervading mentality is that you need both. You need to be able to convert people with performance marketing on on a short-term basis, but you also need to build brands on a long-term basis with, again, like that kind of high quality content, the long-term value that your brand is offering. So you're balancing like conversion versus average lifetime value, if you want to talk about it in metric
Right.
terms, and then also brand sentiment. Do people actually like your brand? So I think we're getting a little bit more sophisticated and it's getting more
Mhm.
complicated. You got to blend and balance those two things.
Yeah. Yeah, and because there is so much out there and so many people that are gonna be in your same market. So, like, with that, how can you blend those 2 marketing techniques together, or what can you do to obviously, it's your brand, so it makes you different, you're different, you set apart, but how can you make your content stand out ethically, but still creatively in your market to be seen by more people organically without doing the clickbait kinda things? Is there any techniques that you've learned or seen work to help people do that?
I think you look, you've got to do some of the things we've talked about.
Right.
If you're leading with, you know who you're talking to, why you want to help them, what's going to help them, consider as well, it's not going to happen overnight. And I think that's another fallacy. I think
Mm.
that is if you go on to Instagram, if you go on to TikTok, there's so much bullshit. I don't know if I want
Yeah.
to
Yeah, you're
podcast.
good.
They make it seem like, oh, these things happen overnight. Fact of the matter is, you need the why of your brand is important because that's what you're going to be passionate about. And that's what's going to make you want to do this over the course of 5 years, 10 years. We talked about at the beginning of this. I've been doing this for 10 years. It feels like we're just getting started
Yeah.
and just consistency.
Yep. The boring
Uh,
stuff no one wants to hear. The stuff they're like, "No, what's the secret sauce?" But that's the truth. You just gotta answer those questions that Ryan put for us at the beginning and just be consistent and improve and innovate, I think, as you grow. But yeah, I think it goes back to that. You just have to put in the work. You just have to continue to get better and innovate and just stick with it.
Stick with it. I think I'm guilty of this as well. Look, I want stuff to happen
Yep.
instantaneously. And it's just not, it just isn't the way it works. And when you see content online that promises things that happen overnight, or you hear influencers or whomever suggesting that, oh, I made this happen in this short amount of time, guarantee you it's not true. Not a reflection of reality. No one loses 100 pounds in a day. No
Right.
one makes $1 million in a minute. It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
You have to stick with it. So you make sure that if you're an entrepreneur, you care about the thing that you're working on because it's going to be a long one.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Like, Elevate's been around we're just 2 years in and super thankful for where we're at. Looking back, can't believe we're at this place already, but yeah, just excited for what we can do, continue to help brands share their stories through video, and that's a huge part of it. And looking back at your story and seeing where you've come from, like, even if you're just a month in, look back a month ago and see how you've grown and see the little wins along the way. I think it's important to remember those. Ryan, for you, like, looking back through your 10 years with that, is there a couple things? Is there a moment on your journey that you can think back to that you're like, "I don't know if this is ever gonna work." Like, I'm gonna throw in the
Like
towel.
earlier this morning.
And then on the flip side, is there a moment where you were like, "Holy cow, like, this is working." Do you remember those moments at all?
Yeah, so one of those moments was about 2 years ago when I was very relevant to a lot of the questions that you've been asking. I was going, "What is my agency? What are we doing?" And I think one of the answers to that was, "You are what you repeatedly do." And what I did is I went back and I looked at all of my clients to try to find commonalities between them. And I realized that we basically work in 4 categories. We work all of my clients, I was like, if I have 3 really strong case studies, that means I have category experience that I can lean on. And I found that I had 3 or more really strong case studies in 4 categories: B2B, health tech, what we call mission driven food and bev, and
Okay.
personal care. And I said, those are what we do. Those are what we are. Let's only talk to those kinds of clients because clearly we're quite good at that. And that really helped shape a lot of the conversations that I was having with in the biz dev world
Mm,
and where to whom I was outreaching. And it was like an aha moment.
yeah,
So that was a moment where I was like, oh, this is really working.
that's awesome.
And then moments where I'm still, I'm always trying to, I guess, define the narrative of the agency in a the vision of the agency, my business in a very clear way that hopefully will attract and inspire really talented people to come and work with me. So I think when I struggle, it's like any entrepreneur out there this will resonate with them where it's like, you feel like you're wearing a lot of hats. I know I'm wearing it, but a lot of hats and you feel like you're forced to do everything. That's a thing that I still deal with and try to solve.
Yeah,
Like, how can I attract other people, create a very clear mission statement and vision for them that they want to participate in so that we can grow this thing together as a team? Because
yeah. I think those are great, and again, yeah, you gotta almost recap your journey and say, where like you said, "This is a moment or this is a place that I struggle in. So how can I improve? How can I find someone to help me? How can I fill that void where maybe I'm not as strong in?" And be open to that because we all have those things that we're not like mine is I've worked on not pulling the trigger as fast on some things because it's gotten me
Mhm.
into some trouble sometimes. And so, like, I quit my job cold turkey during a pandemic to start a business with no experience, like just out of the blue. There's a lot more to it, but
Yeah.
I run marathons without training really at all, just for the challenge. And sometimes that doesn't turn out as good. So it's like balancing the risk and then the calculations with it. Like I'm trying to, and so I lean on my wife more because she's very calculated with things. And so I'm like, hey, okay, I was going to do this. What is your thoughts? Because maybe I'm jumping into it a little too quick on that and
It,
being
it
open to that.
it's interesting to hear you say that. It's a great, we kind of reference that where I give you all this. Oh, here's all Ryan's knowledge on how to do content for other brands. And I'm not doing any of this for my own, or I'm not doing it well. But one of the things we just have a hard time seeing ourselves as objectively as others see us. One of the things I did over the weekend to that end was, are you familiar with the Enneagram?
Yeah.
So I did the Enneagram and I went through for anyone that doesn't know, the Enneagram is a Myers Briggs personality, why people are the way they
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
And I thought it was fantastic. It turns out I'm an Enneagram 8,
Okay.
which is called the Challenger. And everyone is like a good version of themselves, like a
Yep.
medium reflection of themselves and a bad version of
Right.
themselves. And it's okay. Yeah. So like when I'm at my best, I'm like pushing boundaries and confidently leading. And when I'm at my worst, it's all you risk like antisocial personality disorder. So it's like a pretty big swing.
Yeah.
But anyway, I say all that to kind of say like exactly what you were just saying about the entrepreneur journey is only part business. It's also a lot of it's like personal
Yep.
development,
Oh, yeah.
really emotional thing.
Mhm.
It's ups and downs, it's stress, it's really high highs and really low lows. It's confusion, it's elation, it's all these things. And
Yep.
so you have to be on board for that component of it as well. And
100%.
it's at times really rewarding and it's at times it's really hard.
Yeah, and if you can't begin to see yourself from an external view, whether that be self-reflection, taking things like the Enneagram, or just asking people that are close to you, say, "Hey, where am I a total tool at? Where am I really rubbing you the wrong way? What am I doing that's maybe not as healthy? Where can I fix?" If we can't do that, if we can't be honest with ourselves along that journey, that's gonna cause so many more problems than some of the even the foundational business pieces that you have to put in place because it is such a big like, it's everything. Everything's growing and healing and changing. Life, business, health, mentality, all of it. So, yeah, I think that's a big piece, and I think with the Enneagram, it goes back and forth 'cause I've taken it a couple times, either a 1 or a 9, and
Okay.
I haven't looked at it recently or in a while, and so I forget what those 2 mean, but, uh, I kinda got the gist of, like, when I'm healthy, like, I'm a good like, kinda motivator, quote, unquote, "leader" or whatever, but if
Huh?
I'm in a not healthy state, I can be more brash and, like, direct and to the point and not enjoy life, basically, like, just, "Let's get this done." So, all
Yeah.
things that
Well,
open my eyes, and so it's yeah, something I gotta work on continually.
you are what you are. I think
Mhm.
what's interesting about how comprehensive it was also recognizing like your good qualities and your bad
Yeah,
quality. Your good qualities can become bad qualities. On one hand, you're really confident. On the other, you could be really controlling, and you can be a real. You can either be really inspiring or you can be really intimidating or whatever.
right.
And I like you said, so much of that is if you can have like my wife is super helpful at helping me, and because I will ask, I'll be like, "Am I wrong? Am I being a dick?" And it's yeah, you.
Yep,
Yeah, yeah.
for sure. Which is always good to have that feedback. It hurts, but it's okay, you're right, I need to rein it in a
Well,
little bit.
as you grow your business, usually it's going to be you, maybe a partner, but at some point, unless you want to be a solopreneur, you're going to grow the business and you're going to have other people, and then you have a team dynamic that you're trying to figure out. And even though you're the founder, you're so much of your business is going to be an extension and a reflection of you.
Yep,
You have to make space for those other people, and that's one of the things that I think I've tried to. That's been the hardest internal journey is like how to do that because there's
yeah,
not really there isn't really a roadmap.
right.
It's a process.
Yeah, because you gotta form that trust and you gotta release some of that, and yeah, there's a lot to that for sure. I'm curious to kinda round things off here, Ryan, talking about growth and what we've been through. If you could go back even 10 years ago to when you first started,
Yeah.
would you give yourself any advice? And if so, what might that be?
Yeah, I think I would probably be more emphatic about some of the things we talked about. Okay, really sit down and outline your vision, your mission, who you want to help, why you want to help them, how you're going to help them, because I think it would have clarified
Mm,
some things along the way. And I need to do it again today. But that's the thing. It's like you don't really just do it once. You come back to it and revise it and look at it. That's definitely something that I would go back and say, what is your crystal clear vision for what it is that you're trying to create? Why do you want to do it? How are you going to do it? Who are you going to do it with? And what's it going to look like when you do it? So you can stay focused because
yeah.
I think I also suffer from wanting to do a lot of different things.
Yep. I understand that. No, I love that. That's good. I think something we can all take to heart and implement for sure. So, Ryan, again, it's been a great conversation and I've enjoyed it. I think the audience can take a lot from it. Where can people connect with you if they want to do so and find out more about what you do?
Certainly, you can go to circusmaximus.com. That's my agency. I'm on LinkedIn, Ryan Kucher at LinkedIn, and I'm on Instagram, although I probably need like content marketing. I need to be better about that. Ryan Kucher at Ryan Kucher on Instagram. So any of those places, you can definitely reach out, talk to me, or connect with me and my team.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, everyone make sure you get connected with Ryan, his team, what they're doing, and just continue to learn and improve along the way. So, again, Ryan, thanks so much for being on the Elevate Media podcast today.
Chris, thank you, man. It was awesome. I appreciate it.